Thanks again for attending. We're going to launch into our 9th session, also our last. And this is using technology to enhance your messaging from websites to social media to mobile. That's going to be moderated by Sarah Thompson, the Marketing and Community Manager of Tech Impact.
Thank you. Well, I think you said 9th session. That's insane. You all are amazing. Thanks for sticking around. I'm gonna have our panelists introduce themselves, going down the line, starting with Rachel here.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm the CEO and Creative Director of Hatch, which is a freelance platform for nonprofits. I actually come from a background in advertising. I used to work at a couple of big ad agencies here in the city on clients like KY, no giggles, and Hershey. Worked a little bit on CoverGirl. And I recently left advertising to launch our platform to give nonprofits better access to the top talent that is dying to work for causes that you guys are tackling and social issues that you guys are doing. So that's my bit.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Luke Severe. I'm the Chief of Staff for the Office of Policy Planning and Measurement at the New York State Administration for Children's Services, right up the block. Within my division is a data team and workforce innovation, and a lot of what we're going to discuss today as far as technology and how do we use advanced technology to inform our work is really in my shop.
Hi, I'm Ellen Valentine. I'm with IBM, and we're part of Watson Marketing, part of IBM Marketing Cloud. I'm from Orlando, Florida, and I'm freezing. So I've had you guys do this for months on end. Wow, I've got on a cashmere sweater and a jacket, and I need to go get my down coat, I think. So I'm really excited to be here, and you guys are total warriors for being here for the 9th session. Thanks.
Great. Before we dive into questions, I would love to learn a little bit more about who we have in the audience today. So just by a show of hands here, how many of you work for organizations that have between 1 and 10 staff? Okay, great. Raise your hands if you're over 10. All right. Over 20? Over 40? Over 60? Great. How about over 100? Okay, great. So we have a pretty wide representation of small to large organizations, which is great. We will do our best to cater questions and responses to the fact that we have people here under 10 and over 100 employees. So thank you for that. Could you do me a favor? Raise your hand if you are responsible for marketing within your organization. Great. Keep your hand raised if you're one of 3 people or less that's responsible for marketing. Great. About the only person. Okay. There's a space over there. We'll gather later for support group and drinks. Yes. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. I'm sure we have a broad spectrum of causes that we're representing today. And we will definitely be taking some questions at the end. So if you have any, jot them down now so you don't forget them, and I'll get to you later. So I just want to start it off broadly, and we can start with Rachel and go down the line here. Why is it important for nonprofits to be engaged in digital marketing? And if you can think of any success stories within your own experience or nonprofit stories that you've come across through your own work, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things about digital is that it is so actionable. So one of the things that we see, and just from coming from a background of working on very large brands, you actually have the ability to lead people to your website, lead people to your donation page right at their own fingertips. So that's something that traditional media, TV, print, those types of things really can't do. I think having a strong call to action. People are usually looking for a small piece of information, and then they want to know, well, what do I do now? So I think, in terms of digital, when we think really specifically about things like social, Facebook, running banner ads, any of those things, having that really strong CTA is really important. And I think that's super effective for leading people then to find out more information, and then eventually to that conversion of donation, which a lot of times, is the end goal. Another thing that's really important about it is this ability to retarget. So you know, a lot of times it's not enough to just expose somebody to your cause or to your organization one time. You can't necessarily get them on board with serving them one Facebook ad. So that ability to track those things and that ability to see those people and actually continue to feed messaging to them sort of helps to get that conversion rate a little bit higher. So, you know, you're seeing that, okay, maybe this is more of like an introductory portion of the marketing where people aren't aware of what you do or what your cause is, and that's sort of that first introduction into it, and then being able to retarget that and being able to get those people more involved and sort of deeper down that funnel is something that's super, super effective in digital marketing. So again, that's where, you know, a lot of the traditional platforms sort of fall short.
So I think one of the big things is, you know, the for-profit companies really target their audience and target their consumers through their, you know, electronic recruitment, et cetera. And so as nonprofits who are offering services for, you know, community, industry, et cetera, you know, you're essentially competing with the for-profits in attention. And, you know, with our agency, we have nonprofit agencies that provide community-based services. And when you look at our consumers, you know, they are modernized as far as technology, having, you know, iPads, cell phones, all different types of communication devices. And they're plugged in electronically, whether it's social media, website, et cetera. And so it's a way to really engage them and to, you know, draw them to, like you were saying, to the services that you provide. But I think one of the great things about digital marketing in this day and age is that you can make it robust where you're meeting their needs real time. And I think that comes with research, that comes with understanding, you know, the needs of the communities, et cetera. But by having, let's say, an app on the phone for someone in the community who needs to know where the nearest hospital is, you know, that's a real-time electronic resource that they can tap into and find very useful. And so I think as nonprofits, looking at the for-profit model is very beneficial to really carrying out the great work that you all do.
That's a great point. I'll echo that. I've had an opportunity to coach and mentor some of the nonprofits that are actually IBM Marketing Cloud clients, and they look to the consumer market for ideas on campaigns and things to do. I have a client, International Fund for Animal Welfare. They implemented a scoring model. So they start scoring every single person in their database, and they start personalizing all their interactions based on the scores that people have. Last holiday season, they hit 1,600% of their funding goal because they were able to get so personalized. And you know, when you think about getting personalized, I know that some of you guys with small staffs start thinking, I can't do this, I don't have the bandwidth. Well, it's kind of an oxymoron. The more personalized you need to get, the more automated you need to be. The more you need to let your database drive all of these personalization efforts. You know, just one other last point is everybody here needs to be doing donation abandonment. So, you know, I go to your website, I opt in, give you my email address, or I give you my mobile number for mobile push. I go to the donation page, but I do not donate because I've got ADD and it's a holiday season. I've got 18 browsers open and my phone rings and then I get a text message. You need to remind me to come back, and we have loads of case studies where you know, customers, you know, 20 times higher donation rates because we send out reminder messages to remind them to go ahead and finish out that donation. So that is the lowest hanging piece of fruit that I can advise you guys to do is, you know, you need donation abandonment campaigns. Those are automated, they're rule-based, very, very effective.
Can I chime in? And that's a good point. I know recently I was getting campaign emails. I was like, oh my God, just $10, please leave me alone. But it works, and so, you know, that's when you think about it. You know, I consider myself, you know, educated voter who knows, like, you know, a lot of people out there are gonna just say, you know what, let me just, you know, pay, let me, you know, and so it's, like you said, a low-hanging fruit that you should really take advantage of.
Great, yeah, I love lead nurturing. I mean, and that's essentially what it is. I mean, it's a salesy term to use, but it's a really effective strategy. So if that's something new that you haven't yet been introduced to, jot that down. There's lots of resources out there talking about lead nurturing for a wide variety of available technologies that you may or may not already be using. So, I mean, when I think about digital marketing, I think of it as an opportunity for a nonprofit to build their own online community. You're not just trying to get a donation. Some organizations are, trying to spread advocacy and awareness about things, and you have the ability to create a community of people who are all over the place. That's not something, sure, you can throw an event, that's great, amazing, but it's such an opportunity for a greater impact, which I think is great. So when we're thinking about whatever platform we're using, be it our website or social media or a blog or something, and we have an idea for a campaign, we touched on this briefly, but I'd like to ask you again, where does building a successful message start within your marketing team?
Yeah, so I think something that's really important when it comes to messaging, I think a lot of the problems that the organizations in the room are solving are probably very complicated. They're very nuanced, they're multi-layered, it takes a lot to explain exactly what is going on. And something that, in my experience, just working in advertising and working with even like big brands who are working with smaller organizations, did a few things with Project Peanut Butter, is boiling that message down. So, being able to take something that is so complicated and that you may know is ridiculously, layered, and boiling it down to something that's more digestible. So, it's the general, you have to, I guess, keep in mind that the general public is so far removed from these problems. As a person living in New York City making X amount of money, I don't know what it's like to be starving somewhere. And to say, 3 billion people are starving, that kind of thing, it's too big. It's hard to digest as a normal individual. So you have to be able to take that and create sort of this, idea of empathy where somebody like me who lives a completely different life can start to understand really what that feels like. And one of the ideas that we pitched to this organization through Hershey, I loved advertising, everyone, was, portion sizes. So that was something that, people abroad struggle with a lot, or people who are impoverished struggle with, is not having enough food, not having the right food and not having enough. So the idea of portion is something that any person can understand. You can understand what understand helps to say like, whoa, people take a step back and that really hits them. It hits them hard and they start to sort of understand, and that idea of like walking a mile in someone else's shoes, and that can really drive a lot of conversions and a lot of people to want to learn more and want to get more involved in that sort of like nuanced area of the issue. But in terms of messaging, I would say, pick the main thing, find something that normal people can find common ground with, can understand, can digest, and then capitalize on that and put that message out there, and then lead them into the more complicated stuff later. It's more effective that way.
I think my response is along the same lines where, an easy and affordable way to really start your messaging is have focus groups with the target audience, with your end users. Whatever your mission of your organization is, it really would be helpful to bring in, a cohort of people who will be actually using your services or meet the needs that you are targeting, and just say, hey, how best can we serve you, one, and how best can we communicate with you? I think you killed two birds with one stone there, where you truly understand their need and you're focused on what their need is, but you also get real-time and real-life information from them on how best to communicate with them. Some people are great with emails, some people are not, so they may need a phone call. Or some people are great with websites, and some people are not. They need a social media medium, like a tweet or whatever. So it really would be helpful to just gather a focus group, or even if you have volunteers, to just do surveys in the communities on the best way they would like to really communicate with that they would like you to communicate with them.
I'm going to take a slightly different tack than that. I totally agree with interviewing your constituents and potential donors. There's a book called Buyer Personas. It's by Adele Rivella, and I'm a huge proponent of developing buyer personas. You do in-depth qualitative interviews on 15 to 20 of your donors, and you put them into categories, and you actually transcribe all of these in-depth qualitative interviews, and you look for the phrasing, and you look for the words that people are using, and you might have 3 different types of donors that respond to messaging 3 completely different ways. And then you want to develop a content matrix. You know, we talked about nurturing. Develop a content matrix for each of those personas that takes them down a donor path or takes them down an advocacy path that they will resonate with, that the other personas may not resonate with. So that's what I would do. Her book tells you how to do this work. You can actually teach yourself how to do these in-depth qualitative interviews. They're not highly scripted at all. You just get them talking and get them to, and you probe deeper and deeper into that. I think it's a foundation book for anyone marketing really anything, but that would be my advice.
Great, thank you. So I have a 2-part question that I'm gonna ask you to answer in 2 different ways. So it's kind of like a 4-part question. So what marketing mediums, meaning your website, social, do nonprofits need to be active with? And related to this, what technologies can help them be active on those mediums? And then it would be helpful if you could answer it for a smaller organization that, you know, has a 1 to 2 person marketing team, and then to a larger organization who's ready to make a jump in investment in a marketing technology.
Sure. So I think, you know, when it comes to choosing what medium you're going to use, you have to answer 2 questions. Who is your audience, and what are you trying to accomplish? So when you identify those 2 things, you can back into it from there. You know, Twitter is really useful for certain things, getting out little snippets of information, whether that's statistics, raising awareness, jumping in on a hashtag. Those things can be really effective. Facebook is a great visual platform. You can use video, you can use motion graphics, they have a ton of different ad types that actually cost the same if you use them, like expandable ads and things like that. So I think setting up your goals before you start launching into what mediums are we going to use is really important, and that's something that people overlook a lot. A lot of people think like, oh, I need to be everywhere on everything all the time, and yeah, that would be great, but that's actually just not realistic really for anyone, and it's honestly not that effective in my opinion. So I think setting those goals, figuring out, okay, is your audience 18 to 24? Get on Tumblr. You know, is it an older audience? Okay, maybe we go on Facebook. So figuring out exactly who you're going after and what goals you're trying to accomplish can help you sort of back into those things. And you can, a lot of that information is available online as well. You know, Facebook has many decks that will outline exactly how effective they are and exactly where. But I think those 2 things are really important. And you know, I think Twitter, if I'm gonna choose one, is very underestimated. I personally, I use it a lot, our company uses it a lot, and it's a really great way to just sort of bridge that gap and start connecting with people in a really simple way, just boiling everything down to that 140 characters that can help you kind of communicate more effectively. And I would say for the second part of that question, in terms of like how important certain things are, I mean, the website is important. I think you all know that. I don't need to tell you that. But I think how you structure your website and how that user journey goes is really the most important part about it. And it kind of comes back to messaging again. You know, a lot of these problems are very complicated. I have a feeling maybe a lot of your websites have a lot of copy on them, and they are, you know, they have a lot of explaining that they need to do because that's what people want to know. They want to know exactly what's going on. So even just being able to take some of that, like some of those copy-heavy sections and visualize them, or create some sort of motion graphic out of them, something like that, just helps to keep things more digestible. And that's what people are used to now. Unfortunately, they're going to skim it, or they're going to maybe watch a video, but they are very used to being kind of everything just being laid out in front of them. So that to me is like, it's really important to pull out the most important parts of your message and serve them in a way that people can digest them.
Ditto. She really said it all. You know, you really need to know who your target audience is. You need to know who you're looking to really appeal to. And as stated, you know, like Twitter, it forces you to be really concise on what your message is. And if you look at just stats on how we retain information now compared to many years ago, it's much less, and our attention span is quicker. As far as the importance, again, your social media presence, your website are very important. And I'll even take it a step further. When you're actually designing your website and designing your social media, think of how can it be a resource to the person using it. Not just an information area, but if there's, let's say that your nonprofit is about healthy eating, well, how can you point whoever goes to your website to a local vendor who may, assist them in the healthy eating? Or, if you're a prescription or what have you, how can you point the person to a local pharmacist that can assist them in those needs? That, I guarantee you, will have the person keep coming back because you helped them solve an issue that they were looking to really address. And so I think looking not only at your target audience, your end user, but also how can you make it helpful to them and not just an information dashboard.
All good points. If you're a small shop, I think that you should really do time management with your social, because I think social can be all consuming if you've got just one or two people. I would buffer everything out that you possibly can and get that scheduled at the beginning of the week so that it will run, and then your quote smoke breaks are responding to people that have messaged you and being conversational, but email. My RSPCA, 47% of the revenue that they've acquired, the donations, is from the email channel, 47%. You look at Caring Bridge, 2 largest donation days in company history were for their donor renewal program, email. So, you have got to really, double down, but you've got to be really careful. You can't just be doing, blasting your whole list. You've got to start doing things like persona-based segmentation, personalization, looking at donation abandon, looking at all that web tracking behavior, who's been to what page on your site, what website did they visit, what PDF did they download, what video did they watch, and doing triggered communication based on that behavior. So you're weaning yourself off of the one-sided blasting and doing much more of these behavioral-based triggered messaging so that you can raise your effectiveness rates. Most of my good folks that are doing some great campaigns are getting a 50 and 60% open rates. That's not unusual for these high-value programs.
Yeah, just to add to just a couple tools for some email stuff that I actually recently discovered. So there's automated email things that I'm sure that you guys are aware of, but there are actually a few tools that you can see, when exactly people have opened your email, what exactly they clicked on, and then beyond that, you can upload PDFs to certain tools that will show you how much time they spent on per page, how much time they overall were engaged with. The first one is Polymail, which is just a third-party email vendor that you can just sign into your Gmail, whatever it is, if that's available, if the system isn't, if you're not pigeonholed into a certain system that allows you to track that stuff. And then DocSend is a really interesting tool that you can upload PDFs to that allows you to actually track all of those things. So that's been really useful for us, even just as like a startup for fundraising, just seeing, where are they dropping off, what are they reading, what are they spending the most time on per page in terms of decks or longer PDFs, things like that. Those are some interesting tools. They're free. They're free at first, of course. And then beyond that, you have to pay a subscription for them. But they've been really, really effective for us as a company, and just in general, just getting rid of sort of like some of that black hole action that happens after you send out an email or blast a bunch of people.
By show of hands, how many people are representing organizations that are currently using some sort of automation system when it comes to marketing? Great. Ellen, could you speak a little bit about marketing automation and what that means? When we talk about lead scoring and personas, and that's all aspects of.
Those are all aspects of a comprehensive digital marketing platform, and we all of us vendors that are in the digital marketing platform space, we continually add bells and whistles, so every year we've got more capability, but automation is what gives you leverage. I've got a lot of, 1 and 2 and 3 people shops that do amazing amounts of things, but that's because they've automated things, so it's rule-based communication, so you design a rule that says, as soon as someone doesn't click or open anything for 6 months, I want you to automatically put them into a re-engagement campaign. So you design what those email templates look like, or you design what the mobile push should look like, or what the snail mail should look like. It's not just email, it's multi-channel. And you design out all of those things ahead of time. Once you get that set up, you can forget about it, because the system is gonna automatically look all the time to see, okay, who's crossed that 6-month threshold, who then needs to participate in that reactivation campaign. All the platforms provide a web tracking snippet that you put on your website, so all that web tracking behavior is appended to each individual record. So then you can do rule-based communication. All the people who visited this web page but did not click on the donate here button, I want to send them this message. Again, you set it up once and forget it. It's what really gives you leverage. Lead scoring, again, allows you to do more further personalization and segmentation. So they're very rich tools, and because I'm up here from IBM, you think that our stuff costs $1 million, but it really doesn't. We've got a lot of very small associations and nonprofits that are using a platform like ours, and there's a number of choices out there in the industry, but we like to think that ours is great.
Do you do nonprofit discounting?
I don't know if we do or not. You'll have to talk to Sandy out front, my rep out there. We'll get aggressive with you.
Always
sure.
ask.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Even if it's not advertised, always ask. And obviously never pay the tax. So to give you a little bit of my personal experience, I work for Tech Impact. We are a nonprofit that involves other nonprofits in the community with technology. So when I first started, I was the first person ever hired to do anything related to marketing. And they had outsourced some marketing work before me, but I was brought on when, I think I was the 21st employee, and that was about 2.5 years ago. We are now over 50 employees, and it's within those 2 period of times, we implemented a marketing automation system. And I mean, without that, I wouldn't be able to have the reach that I do. And I would say my biggest challenge is, once I have my workflows and rules set up, is to remember, oh, okay, maybe it's time to do something new. Because you can set it up and leave it and see the results come in and start to look at data. So now that brings me to a good point where we can start to talk about one of the hottest words in the nonprofit world right now, which is data analysis and visualization. So we talked about the channels and the actual tech to use with marketing. I'd like to kind of pose the same question to the panelists. How can a small nonprofit use the data that they're already collecting, because you are, to do better marketing? And then maybe how can a larger nonprofit with a little bit more resources, maybe a little bit more technology, how can they use it? Why don't we start with Luke, because you just jumped to that.
I think, as said before, it really informs your medium for communicating to your target audience. If you notice that your target audience will respond to you via email, then and you have a big percentage of people who are responsive via email. Of course, that's the medium that you're going to keep consistently communicating with them. But if you see that that's not working, if the data is showing you that email is not working, be it that, what Lyndon said as far as maybe they're not checking their email or you need to re-engage them, data will definitely tell you that. And so I think it's very important to really step back and look at your data to inform really how effective your communication is with your end users.
The first thing that I do when I go meet with any client, any industry, is I say, okay, tell me about your database. And the ones that are the poorest marketers, their database consists of name and email address and maybe physical mailing address, and that is it. My really awesome marketers, they've got a lot of data, and they've got it in their digital marketing platform, and they've got a lot of integrations with other systems in their organization. They've got things like their call center or their hotline. You know, that data is integrated in with their digital marketing platform, so the minute that person hangs up the phone, you know, the next day they've got an email queue, you know, an email message going out to those people that took the time to pick up the phone and place a phone call. They've got their donor management system is fully integrated, so they know how much has been donated this year, last year. All that is integrated in with their digital platform. So, you know, everybody should have a tech chart, you know, a one-page slide that talks about, you know, the data that you do have in your database, and then all the other systems you have at your disposal, or the ones that you plan to have and want to have, and then the use cases for how you might use that data to have more personalized, more advanced messaging.
Yeah, I think just to that point, data's awesome. Like, I love data. But what it really is context. So, you know, data is not effective without context at all. It's just a bunch of names and emails and numbers and things like that. But what it does is it applies context to what you guys are trying to do. So it allows your organization to figure out how you can fit into somebody's life, how it can be relevant to them, you know, whether that's by location, whether that's by demographic, or any of these things, age, any of these things. It helps you tailor your message to that person. And you know, I completely agree on the personalization thing. Cannot push that enough. There's definitely like a creepy line that you can approach really pretty quickly, but you know, that personalization effort is super important. And what it really is it's context. It allows you to understand, you know, how does this organization fit into my life, and why this organization, and why should I care? Why should I care? And that's, at the end of the day, that's really the question that you're trying to answer.
Great. So before I want to take some time right now just to see if there's any questions out there. We have about 10 minutes left, and I still have a few questions of my own, but I want to make sure that we get anything answered that we need to. Okay, sir?
Yeah, one word that keeps coming up, I'm on the IT side, but support from the CRM level primarily, but recently around marketing automation.
My question is around an expression I keep hearing about omni-channel, and I hear it sort of in relation to some of the behavioral responses. Could you talk a little bit about what that means? I'm still a little unclear about omni-channel.
Well, from my perspective, that means you can design a campaign that includes email, SMS messaging. It can include physical messaging, app-based messaging. When I'm in the venue, if you do any venue-based things, there's a lot of very cool things that you can do with beacon technology. It's actually sending an old snail mail, which is so rare these days that it really can be a standout piece that can get some very nice results. So it's about using all the channels, and you've got the social channel, of course, too. So it's about using all of those channels. But I am one person. I'm not Ellen on Facebook and Ellen on Twitter and Ellen in email. I'm actually one person. So your digital marketing platform needs to be able to knit together all of that data into a single record so that you have a good view of what's going on.
Anybody else? Okay, that's okay. So I want to talk about outsourcing. So, I mean, I mentioned that I have experience with working with a partner, an external partner to my organization to help with marketing. In my own experience, we have had assistance with our blog. We post every day, and it's relevant to, you know, our niche community. And that was appropriate for us to do because it was determined that my time was not best spent on writing a blog every day. So can you guys talk a little bit about outsourcing, the pros and cons, things to look out for, and maybe when you would want to do it?
Yeah, so outsourcing is super effective. I mean, there's, you know, I come from the agency side, and I also come from the freelance side, which is how I landed here. And hiring individual people like that too is so effective to take some of that work off your hands. And marketing sort of has that kind of evil thing to it, especially in the nonprofit sector where you're kind of slapped on the wrist for spending too much in it, and it has this sort of like oxymoron to it. But like I said before, talking about communicating your message, even hiring a graphic designer to crunch some of that heavy text on your website into an infographic, or a video editor to cut some footage together for you that you may have had at an event, or a project that we recently had on site was an organization from Louisiana, and they had a ton of footage of the flooding down in Louisiana over the summer, which was actually called the worst natural disaster since Hurricane Sandy by the governor. And yet nobody was talking about it. And so they came to us and they said, we have all this crazy footage, we need somebody to edit it together. So, we set them up with one of our freelancers, and that was super effective for them to be able to hire somebody contractually. There's no overhead, you don't have to deal with these agencies who are, upticking you 400%, $50,000 just to do a website overhaul it's just impossible. So, being able to contract people on a project basis and saying, hey, maybe we need a backend developer to help us out for a couple extra weeks to get something implemented into the system, and then that contract is over, can be super, super effective. And in terms of marketing, you can help to, marketing is sort of like an umbrella term, but there's really right now, it's content creation. It's making things that are relevant to people. And there are a lot of skill sets that you may not be able to afford to hire full time that can really, really help with creating that stuff and creating that content that can be really relevant. So, I'm a little biased because of the freelance platform, but we've found that it's super, super effective. It's really cost effective. It helps ease some of the pro bono issues that happen when people lose accountability, and it can help you get something out the door really quickly. And it can really be effective if you put it to the right use, I think.
I think I was going to say along the same lines that time-wise, it's faster. It's cost-effective because you're not dealing with a massive agency or company to really design your work. But also, it brings a level of they have a modern expertise. So that's one of the things that the freelancers will have is that what's new, what's trending, how can your marketing, our marketing materials vibe with what's new, what's trending, and they have that information. I think that's always a positive. As far as negative,
No, I think that you just need to, what I'd love to do is if I'm reaching out to probably more than just a freelancer or one person, but if I'm reaching out to a little bit more of an agency, I like to get them to present to me what they do without giving them a lot of information, because they're naturally going to talk about what they're really good at. And then you can also, by what they don't talk about, you can figure out what maybe you want to give to someone else. So I think if you give them sort of like that carte blanche to present, what they do and how they do it, then I think that gives you, a really good path to, who you might want to work with. And I think it really today, for most of us, it's about putting together, a 100-piece puzzle almost. Maybe not 100 pieces, but you're going to have to figure out all of those pieces and cobble them together. But I think you're going to get a much more effective solution than if you just go to one of these large agencies that, is super expensive, that, will only be good at a couple of those things.
I think one thing to note about outsourcing is having a clear plan of really what you need. So there, a creative brief is so important. Setting your goals, knowing what the goals of that project are before you reach out to anybody that's freelancing for you or anytime you're trying to outsource is so important, because a lot of times people get to that point where they're like, oh, I found this person that I love, and oh, I love your cause, I want to do work for you, and then they both kind of look at each other like, now what? So, making sure that you're able to sort of lay that out and saying, okay, we want to redo our website for the XYZ for these reasons will help them know exactly how to prioritize what they're doing for you. So from, even just from a graphic design perspective and talking about the flow of your website and leading users through that experience, it really is about priorities. It's about laying out what exactly you need, like you want people to know what your mission is about, and then you want people to be emotionally invested, and then you want them probably the end goal is to donate a couple dollars. So, you know, making sure that you know your goals before you approach anybody that you're outsourcing is gonna save you time, it's gonna save a huge headache, and it's just gonna let you guide that process that much faster. Because a lot of these individual contractors have amazing skill sets, and they're gonna sit there and they're gonna wait for you to tell them what you need. And a lot of times that can cause just sort of a headache when that's not clearly laid out to begin with. So.
Yeah, but I was suggesting kind of keeping that a little bit of a secret at the beginning.
Oh, yeah,
So that they can tell you what
Yeah.
they're good at, and I think you're looking for some great out-of-the-box ideas that you've never even thought of, and if you're super prescriptive about what you want, you're gonna miss out on getting some of those cool ideas.
Yeah, I think from an agency perspective that it's like that definitely they should come to the table. There's something to, but if you're hiring like a one-off graphic designer to do a very specific website type of thing, that can be, you know, that can be really effective.
Do you have a question?
Yes, I was just going to ask more like a comment, because I find that initially they come up with great ideas, and then once they're actually managing things for you, it's like a pain in the neck. You end up having to really monitor everything so much, because they really aren't, they don't understand your content the way that you like them to. But you're not, I'm not the marketer, so,
Right.
you know, so that part of it is very frustrating.
Right, so she was speaking towards the fact that, you know, they are not a part of your organization and don't understand the mission that you're working towards every day, which is a challenge. I mean, it's a challenge for us. I had spent a lot of time educating our outsourced partner about nonprofit technology and how that's a thing. So, I mean, we're really running out of time. We have 2 more minutes. So I'm going to end with a final question as concisely as possible. It's a challenge in itself. What should the audience take away as being the most important thing they need to be working towards in regards to digital marketing?
It's a broad question.
Yeah, it is. It's hard.
You know, look, I think digital marketing works for you. You know, it's not the other way around. You don't work for digital marketing. You need to, what you really need to do is sit down and have a legitimate conversation with your team, or if you're only with yourself, if you're one person, about what your goals are. And I think leading people through that funnel through digital is really important. And you know, a lot of people probably tell you, like I said before, be on X, Y, and Z and do all these things and tweet and hashtag, and you know, and that's an overwhelming just feeling in general. But I think just taking the reins on that and understanding how each platform is different from one another, and social is such an umbrella term. It doesn't really get into the nitty gritty of everything, and keeping in mind that different platforms serve different purposes. There's some things you can do in mobile on Facebook. Keep in mind that people probably don't have the sound on, so if you're going to produce videos for Facebook, make sure those are super visual, or you put captions on them, things like that can be really effective. So really know who's on, what the demographics are for each platform, what they're good at, and then make them work for you, because that's, at the end of the day, that's the point, is you're trying to put your message out through those outlets, through those mediums, and if you start doing things the other way around, you'll just get overwhelmed with the possibilities of being on the 20 million platforms, email things that are available, because really at the end of the day, you can really do any of those things.
I'll just jump in here and say that this is a great time because we're, you know, goal planning for 2017. So what's your push goal? What is the one thing you can do that's going to make a lot of other things easier? And I happen to think that it's around data and it's around rule-based automation. So, you know, what can you do to enhance your data, and how can you put that data to use to have a more personalized experience?
So I would say, you know, be real about your internal capacity to support a robust marketing plan. You know, if you don't have, exactly like you were saying earlier, if you don't have the resources internally to manage a Twitter account or, you know, Facebook, what have you, you know, look at some other creative ways that you can leverage what you currently have in-house to get the message out. And again, going back to what I said earlier, really look at your end users' interests, because really that's the focus of the goal of your nonprofit, is to really serve the people that you're intending to serve, and so, or you're targeted to serve. And so once you understand what and through data and through research, once you understand their needs and their their reception to your marketing plan, then I think that those are the two steps that you should really consider and take that with you.
Great, well, we are just 2 minutes over time. I think that's pretty good. So thank you so much to the panelists and